Between the two of them. The inside of Coates. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, one and all, and welcome to the penultimate round of the Academy, powered by VRRC Clio Cup. My name is Jack Oliphant, and as ever, I am joined in the virtual commentary box by Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, doing very well, thanks. Times here at Thruxton looking very, very tight in free practice. We've got 4 drivers separated by less than a tenth, so tonight is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and the championship's looking equally close as well. We'll bring you up to date with all of those sort of gubbins in a couple of minutes' time. Of course, we've got the wonderful Thruxton. It's provided some excellent action for us in the League of Champions, the Academy in previous iterations, and of course the Super Touring recently as well. So we're very much looking forward to seeing how the guys crack on with this one. 15-minute qualifying followed by 2 races, both 20 minutes. One, of course, is a top 10 reverse grid, unlike the Super Touring, which is a full reverse grid. And as I mentioned, this is the penultimate round. We've only got Cadwell next week to look forward to, so how the championship is set up at the end of this one could be extremely important and start to put some drivers under the pressure, Dave. It's going to be very interesting, but of course, there's some prizes to be won at the end of all this.
Yeah, there is indeed. So as you can see, the prizes are all aimed at trying to get driver improvement. That's the key to the Academy. Get these drivers going from the Academy level into the bigger championships where the prizes are even bigger still. So you can see first place prize, AOC gaming headphones, very kindly provided by AOC, but also 2 hours one-to-one online coaching. Second place is our PowerMax Carvalho, but yet again, thank you very much, PowerMax, brilliant sponsor on board, and 1 hour's one-to-one online coaching. And then third place, 1 hour online coaching, but then also 1 hour's car setup coaching, which I think you'd agree, Jack, is so important in future championships to know how to get a good base for your car. Otherwise, you can build yourself down into one of them pits where you just keep making the car worse and worse and worse.
Well, I think a few of the drivers, that are taking part in the Academy and the Super Touring will openly admit that the Super Touring being an open setup championship, they could do with that. They really need to tone their cars in, dial their cars in a little bit better compared to some of the really quick guys. And sometimes it's what separates them. They might have the skill, but they don't have the knowledge, and that's what we're trying to bridge the gap for. Anyway, we're looking at Snetterton 300, the last round that we had in the Clio Cup. Very exciting. Carl Felvers take home the most amount of points with Nicky Taylor in second place and Robin Walters in third. Keep an eye on that order and those names when we have a look at the championship in a couple of minutes' time. Carl Felvers was driver of the round as well, and Dave, I mean, everything sort of blurs into one. We had so many races at Snetterton last week, but they were all fantastic. So it was brilliant to see these drivers getting stuck into the Norfolk circuit.
Yeah, it really was. Snetterton really provided some extremely good, clean, very, very close racing. It was just Kyle had just got the edge on all the other drivers. Just, brilliant drive by the youngster. Nicky Taylor also doing a brilliant job. Robin Walters had the pace in the car, but I think he was maybe slightly disappointed, just didn't quite execute the results that maybe he thought he could get out of that.
Yeah, but of course, the driver of the round doesn't actually win anything in the Academy. That's worth keeping in mind as well. It's not like the Super Touring where they get a PowerMax bucket, but they do have the pride of knowing that they've done the best, in our opinion, of the evening. If we're looking at the championship then, I mean, you can't get much closer, realistically, between Carl Felvers and Nicky Taylor, just like we saw actually yesterday in the Super Touring. Those guys were stuck nose to tail for pretty much the entirety of the evening. Unfortunately, Carl didn't have such a great run at Alton yesterday. He'll be hoping for better here at Thruxton. Nicky Taylor in second place. 136 to Kyle, 134 to Nicky Taylor, just 2 points as I mentioned. Robin Walters, who, as we mentioned, came third last time out at Snetterton, comes in third at the moment in this championship. But there is still 2 rounds to go. There's 2 races to go in this one as well. Mick Sutton looking very strong this evening. He's in fourth, probably hoping to bridge the gap to Robin Walters rather than be caught by Martin Johnson, who seems to be somewhat of a reverse grid specialist. Paul Zanatachi is probably the notable driver, almost out of position from where we expect him to be. But you never know, he could pull it together here at Thruxton. Speaking of Thruxton, speaking of Clio Cups, we probably have a look at what the optimal lap time is around this circuit, provided by Dave Marshall.
So here we are, round 5 at Thruxton, the penultimate round of the Academy Clio Cup powered by VRRC. Completely flat here through turn 1, trying to keep as little steering lock on there as possible and carry as much speed through the corner as possible. Into the first complex, I take quite a shallow line up here on entry, down to second gear, take a little bit of curve, and it just allows me to be completely flat through the left and right here on the exit, which is going to benefit your straight line speed all the way through the back section of the track, which is absolutely crucial, more so in a racing scenario when slipstream is everything. Now through Noble, I don't take any curb here, you can, but I just feel like it skips the car a little bit. You might lose about 1 or 2 miles an hour. Through Goodwood, all about commitment, try to decide how early you can get back on that throttle without washing left on the grass. You go out there, you're not getting back on. You can see shortening the track by just cutting that corner off a little bit and then into church. Turn in completely flat through here. You should be flat, otherwise if you're not, you just need to change your approach angle slightly there. These cars are quite easy to do that flat. Now into the last complex, you want to get a brake as late as you possibly can and straight with the wheel as well. Trying to get the car stopped, make sure you don't clip the back left wheel here on the curb and get the best line through the chicane as possible. Make sure you tune in at 7:15 on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube on Wednesday nights.
And we're back with live pictures, and well, unusually, we're actually back with pretty much the entirety of qualifying. We're only 30 seconds in. You can see the drivers actually just starting to come out of the pit lane. So there's no times on the board, Dave, and this is a situation we find ourselves in not that regularly anymore. Normally we join in with about 9 minutes to go, but it does give us an opportunity to talk about the sort of preparation for qualifying, I would say, more than anything. All these drivers on the same tyres, on the mediums. You have to warm things up, and it's a psychological game, isn't it? All of a sudden, you get into qualifying. You've obviously done practice for an hour or however long you've been in the server, but that still doesn't really prepare you for qualifying because it's a different kettle of fish. The pressure's now on.
Yeah, it does indeed. And I tell you what, something that is also really overlooked during qualifying is track position. So this is really where you could see drivers. I see Paul Zanetechi on the timing screen. He just let, I believe that's Brad Smith. By the way, Brad Smith said, can you please shout out my daughter Olive? So Olive, you're watching, there's your shout out. Sure, Brad will do very well here tonight round Thruxton. Yeah, so getting track position on entry for a qualifying lap is super important. So you might see the likes of Nicky Taylor and Felvis, not saying working together, but definitely not hindering each other. Maybe a little bit of slipstream help there. I see Robin Walters as well. He's gave himself a nice big gap. Hasn't rushed to get out of that pit in that traffic, just so he can get a bit of clear air. It's very much a driver preference, and some drivers don't like any distraction. Some drivers love to be right on the bumper and gain every advantage they can in that tour. So, yeah, I don't know what your preference was, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the G40 Cup. I had a teammate who was in the running for a championship with me, and but we had a very good relationship, and we knew that we were very clean and respectful to each other on the race track. We actually had some awesome battles. We ended up sort of in qualifying. If we were around each other, we'd try and stick around each other. It's not like it was an intent or a plan before we went out, but you really do have to try and find a driver that you're sort of on the same level with. And when we were looking back at the data, because we were teammates, we found that, you know, I was quicker in certain corners, he was quicker in others. And so we sort of knew that understanding, because the last thing you want is to get behind someone and be surprised about what they're doing in qualifying. You want to be confident, okay, I know they take 2 miles an hour less than me through here, so I'm confident that I'll be able to get the run on them without actually them breaking out of nowhere, and all this sort of thing. Because if you hunker up behind someone, it's all very well and good for slipstream, but then if they brake really hard and all of a sudden you're flying at the backside and you have to hit the brakes as well unexpectedly, it can be really dodgy. I remember I was racing against Michael Crease, and he was my teammate as well, but we didn't quite have the same sort of connection and relationship, really. It was his first year of racing, and he was a bit more erratic than you find him now. So I never really trusted being behind him that closely. He obviously ended up being a very good driver, and I would trust him down to the earth now. But back then, it wasn't really as clicky as I'd like. So it's a little bit difficult. even though this isn't a team championship, it's an individual championship, you'd still probably hope that you're around those people that you trust and race against regularly.
Yeah, and I'm actually just looking at this now. Not drivers that I would necessarily say are usually together on the grid, but actually Robin Walters and John Jones together on track. And actually, I think that's worked absolutely a treat for John Jones. He's tucked in behind Robin Walters and actually is currently sat 4th place, just half a second off pole. So John Jones has really used Robin there to help pull him through and find a little bit of extra speed. So great drive there by John Jones.
Yeah, I imagine after this one lap, we'll probably start to see the more representative times as well from all of the drivers, because there's realistically, if you're looking at the likes of Mick Sutton, he was very quick early on, as John Jones isn't going to get any quicker with this particular lap time, though, as he heads off. And it's always very difficult to come back on the circuit, because the circuit just is forever running away from you, because basically Thruxton is an oval.
That might have just backed up what I said as well, because I believe he went wide there because Robin Walters in front of him had gone wide. So
yes,
it maybe did actually correlate exactly what I said. Maybe he used the breaking point of Robin Walters there, or the throttle input, and that's exactly what we'd seen there. So Mick Sutton, very nice drive out the complex there, not clipping that curb on the right. Really unsettles the car and can get a bounce and push the car on. So he's carried good speed through there towards Goodwood. We're not going to take any curve here either. Exactly what we'll see. Middle of the road, holding the middle lane, just fading into the apex there. And this is the problem part of Thruxton for me. How early can you get on the throttle? And I would say there could have probably been on the throttle a good maybe 30 or 40% sooner, looking at how much track he used on exit.
Yeah, but as he flies his way over Church, he's clipping the curb nicely and not having to scrub off any speed. So Mick, with no slipstream here, has a lot of time to find, but he has a lot of time to find at that time. So I'm sure he won't be too worried about it. We've got a little bit of time on our hands, speaking of it. So I suppose, Dave, it's to have opportunity to maybe have a chat about some of the other events that are going on VRRC, because we've spoken about, obviously, the Clios and the Super Tourings and everything like that, as Mick Sutton jumps himself up to 4th place. Probably be slightly happy with where he is on the grid, but he won't be happy with the lap time he's putting in, as well as Paul Laramie. It just upsets him by putting him just down into 5th. Paul Laramie with a good time into 4th place. But yeah, I remember you say just before we went live, Dave, that you want to have a chat about the fun races, because equally, a lot of these drivers who were sort of we're seeing today and seeing the Super Touring, they probably would have started around those sort of fun races as Mick Sutton goes wide.
Yeah, so the fun races really for us provides a really good chance. So it's run on a Sunday at 7:30 on a Settle Corsa, and it gives a really good chance for drivers who's watching this that go, you know what, I'd love to get involved, but can't either commit to a championship or just want to get a feel for what it's like. Really gives a good opportunity to get involved, something that doesn't require any form of commitment. There's no membership to pay. It is literally just turn up and drive, but also drive different car and track combos that you wouldn't necessarily get in championships. So for instance, this week it's Ford Legends, which are unbelievable little monsters, a 34 Ford Coupe with a motorbike engine in, and that's round Monte Carlo. So a very interesting car combo. Previous week was in rallycross cars around Mallory Park, and actually a lot of the academy drivers were in there as well. And you know, it's a brilliant chance to improve car control in cars that are slightly more out there or different to drive, because you get very stuck if you spend the whole time driving Clios and you go and jump in something very sideways like a Mark II on screen now or anything like that. It can be a real wake up the system, but I'm a true believer if you can drive a Mark II sideways or a drift car and really pedal that well, your car control is always going to be really good as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, to be honest, which is why I can't drive, because I can't drive a dirt rally car or anything like that. It's why I'm commentating now. But we have plenty of other stuff as well. If you're a Forza Horizons a more casual gamer, then of course we have a community that's based around racing. There are people that drive as well on Forza Horizon, and a Discord server channel that like to chat about that as well. We have a set of Corsa Competizione for you out there who prefer a little bit more of a endurance-based event, GT3 and 4 cars, of course, and obviously the dirt rally that we've mentioned, for those of you who are basically just completely mad and completely skilled as well, as you are, Dave, as I'm aware. But of course, it's not just these sort of these 4 championships. We've also got the big one. We've got the Mini E Series that's coming up, Dave. That's in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it? And look at that, there we go, the official E Series for the Mini Challenge. You've won it twice, so there's no point me talking about it. Dave, why don't you have a crack at this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to have a crack of this one again. I think I've managed to somehow land myself in the comms box for this one. And I tell you what, the pressure of winning it twice and then going into a third one, I think I'm quite happy with that. So as you can see, you know, starting a few weeks' time, a full schedule from the British calendar of the Mini Challenge. And yeah, I mean, exactly what you said before. Such a prestigious championship, a full fixed setup. And then you can see the prize as well includes test days in a real mini car, as well as sim coaching. We've got OBP hydraulic pedals, which the JCWs use in real life. So it's a set of OBP hydraulic e-sport pedals. Fourth place is our fantastic rig chassis, and then fifth place is a seat. So you know, truly a great opportunity, not only to get involved with some brilliant prizes, but also one of the most prestigious esports championships and some of the biggest competition. We've got many drivers from the real life Mini Challenge, both JCW and the Coopers, and I tell you what, they can drive in real life, but they can drive on a sim as well.
Yeah, and Richard John Neal in the commentary box as well, isn't it? The real life mini championship commentator, and he obviously has his own trophy for a driver who's impressed him over the course of an entire season. They can win an OBP hydraulic sim pedal set as well. But enough about that. We'll mention that throughout the evening. We'll probably go back to what's going on the actual track, because I can see that Robin Walters has flown up the order and is on pole position provisionally. Nicky Taylor 600ths of a second behind him, then Carl Felders and Mick Sutton and Paul Zanetechi. In fact, no, Paul Laramie is actually in fourth. Well, he was in fifth. Mick Sutton's now in fourth, but he hasn't appeared on my browser, on my internet. Timing Tower, unfortunately, has Paul Laramie, but he is there. He's in fifth place. So Robin Walters and Nicky Taylor, that's about as close as we were hoping for. Andy Carroll goes into fifth place now. But Felvers and Sutton still just a touch further back than they were in practice, Dave.
Yeah, there isn't actually. You just touched upon Carroll there. I don't know where you've seen the lap time, but I tell you what, Andy Carroll has managed to get within 1,000th of Mick Sutton. So an incredibly fine margin there. Andy Carroll 1,000th off being fourth place and not fifth. So either lucky or unlucky, decide which one it is. But yeah, Paul Zanetechi down in sixth place. I think he can definitely go a little bit faster than that. He's got a little bit left in the tank. Mick Sutton in practice, we saw Mick Sutton driving very quick indeed. So we know he's got more potential in the lap. It's just a case of Thruxton's one of them where it's all about commitment, and that little lack of commitment in a corner, running slightly wide or scrubbing a bit too much of that speed off, can sacrifice such a huge amount of time around here. So a very important track about keeping that minimum speed as high as possible. Nicky Taylor thought he probably done enough. A very good lap time indeed at 21.6 very early on in this session. But Robin Walters with a low 21.6, a fantastic lap time from him. So provisionally shown himself to be very quick in the car again, like he was at Snetterton, but it wasn't all plain sailing from at Snet, was it, Jack? So this is definitely not job done yet.
No, and when you get into an actual race here at Thruxton, it all gets scrambled up, doesn't it, really? If anybody has ever watched Thruxton racing, you know exactly what we're on about, really. And I remember distinctly watching a mini, not the mini challenge, not the big cars, the old-fashioned mini races, classic mini races. They made a distinct appearance here, a guest appearance. I think it's 2019 at Thruxton, and in the touring car setup. And honestly, they were the highlight of the day. The Ginetta Juniors, the touring cars, any of the Ginettas just couldn't match them in terms of how entertaining they were. And it was essentially no one wanted to be in first place going on to the last lap. I think I saw about 17 changes for the lead on the last lap, because they all wanted to go into the final chicane in second place or third place and get that draft assistance.
Yeah, I actually remember it wasn't long before the start of the next season. It must have been a final round at Thruxton in the 2019 season, maybe. And I was planned on doing a race, obviously, in the following season in the Mini Challenge. And I got offered to do Thruxton. And I actually remember watching that race, and one of the Mini Challenge cars, this is Cooper class, rolled about 3 times going into the last complex. And it was a brutal crash, and thank goodness the driver was okay, and the marshals did a fantastic job as well. But actually on the third roll, it must have burst the fuel tank and actually set the whole car alight.
I do remember that.
The driver managed to kick his windscreen out of the car and climb out of the windscreen. And I remember thinking at the time, I think I might give Thruxton a miss.
Yeah, I don't blame you either. I was going around Thruxton, and I think it was going through Noble, which is not soon after this one for Andy Carroll's going through. And I do remember, like, I was going through it, and I started building my confidence up because it's very quick. And I saw Carlito Morocco or something like that. He just went stage exit left at this point. What the car changed weight, as you just saw then from Andy Carroll. The car didn't change weight properly, and it just went stage exit left and flew left and went into a ditch. And at that point, I was thinking, I'm not sure I want to write a car off this weekend. And as a consequence, I wasn't quite on the pace because I wasn't really brave enough. But it is definitely a commitment style circuit. Even though you're pretty much flat out for 80% of it, it sounds like it should be easy, like a NASCAR race or something like that. But it's absolutely not, because, as I said, those changes of momentum and changes of weight balance in the car is what really sort of messes with you.
It is indeed, and exactly what you're saying. It is a very much a commitment circuit, but requires so much driver's skill. And you know what? It's one thing putting a good lap round here in qualifying, but this is going to be really interesting to see what the racecraft of the drivers like. There is slipstream in these cars. It will play a part. And I tell you what, if you get a driver that finds himself right on the bumper of the car in front, it is incredibly hard to defend around here. So the likes of Nicky Taylor, who's got real world experience in the mini challenge, round Thruxton, you would think he's got a bit of an advantage here. In saying that, we're seeing Kyle Felvers, a very mature driver, not just for his age, just a mature driver in general. Mick Sutton is another good contender. Robin Walters maybe struggled slightly at Snetterton, but still shows he's got good pace during the race. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one, and I'm really struggling to call what I think is actually going to happen here.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Dave. For half of you talking there, I thought someone was breaking into my house, so I sort of took my headphones off, and I didn't quite catch what you were saying then. But luckily, I accidentally locked my girlfriend out, and she's managed to find a way through the back, which is why it's fine anyway. We'll go back to qualifying because the checkered flag has dropped. Robin Walters, Nicky Taylor, and Carl Felvers have all pretty much got their positions locked in as Mick Sutton crosses the line and doesn't improve at all. I don't think anybody's really out there is improving. Andy Carroll in 5th place, I'm sure will be pretty happy. But we saw, you opened with it, Dave, is the fact that the top 4 were actually separated by 1/10 of a second. As that's a huge, I tell you what, wow, fair play. That was very impressive. That was absolutely sensational from Brad Smith there, showing off on the stream. If he meant it, then fair play. Even if he didn't mean it, fair play, to be honest. But you mentioned it in practice, they were less than 1/10 of a second, the gap, wasn't it? And so it's going to be very interesting to see how they crack on in the actual race. But I believe we'll be able to have a chat very quickly to our pole position sitter as soon as we can drag him in, but I know full well that you're quite busy today, Dave, accelerating all the sessions and everything. But Robin Walters has joined us in the commentary box, so why don't you have a chat with him?
Yeah, we will do. And first of all, I've got to say, Olive, there you go. There's your dad showboating for you. So meanwhile, Robin Walters putting it on pole position with an incredibly fast lap. I believe that might be the quickest we'd seen all the way through time practice as well. I take it that must have been one of them laps. I don't know whether you had slipstream, we didn't see that on screen, but it must have been one hell of a hooked up lap.
No, funnily enough, I was struggling in the first and second sector. I think I was maybe just under 1/10 down. I maybe caught a little bit of a slipstream from the guy in front, and then any steward worth his salt is going to have a look at that last chicane because I'm really not sure how much I took.
Well, that's very honest, and it probably will be looked at, but I must say, regarding that, it's sometimes one of them times, especially in qualifying, if you find yourself 1/10 down, you're a little bit beat up and a bit like, I haven't hooked up that sector. Do you find yourself going, you know what, let's throw caution to the wind and let's just give it all in that last sector, because there's a chance that you can crawl that time back and you're not throwing anything away?
Yeah, it's a good point, to be honest, because I think you do. You sort of give up on the lap partway through, and then subconsciously you let go of it, and you end up sort of throwing everything at the last sector without really sort of making any attempts. But no, to be fair, I mean the last even the last chicane on the pole lap, it was close, very close. If I did cut, then I hold my hands up. But it was an honest attempt, and yeah, so I suppose it was quite a hooked up lap in the end.
It was definitely by the lap time. Regarding the Snetterton, obviously we'd seen you put a very, very fast limit at Snetterton, but probably not the result that you wanted to get out of it. Is it going to be a similar thing around Thruxton? Obviously, it's a very, very hard track to defend against the slipstream, so it's going to play a real big part in your racecraft.
Yeah, exactly. I think I really wanted to be part of the the battle for first in terms of the championship. I think I'm maybe just a little bit far behind without Kyle or Nicky having a bad round, as it were. So I think it's going to be fairly basic this week. I think Dave just keep it on the track somewhere near the front, and I'll be relatively happy.
Well, a fantastic effort there, Robin, putting it P1 in qualifying. Let's see what you can do in the race.
Thanks, Dave.
And there we go, Jack. Very, very honest, but yeah, it's very, very close in that track limits. You heard him mention it, and yeah, it's one of them cases where you're not always that sure as a driver whether you've actually managed to keep it legal or not, because you're obviously cocooned in your little cockpit there. So yeah, interesting enough.
Yeah, I mean, as a commentator, I always try and shy away from the conversation of track limits, because it's a little bit of a dark art. It's a little bit of a grey area, isn't it, for stewards to decide on. But before we get into anything else, before we get into the racing or any other sort of dark arts conversations, controversial conversations, we must first have a very quick look at our sponsors. Take a look at this.
At SmartFi, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies. And there are so many reasons, now more than ever, to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
And we're back, and just pretty much a minute away from our first race of the evening. Remember, it's only race one. We do have two races this evening, the second of which is a top 10 reverse grid, which is pretty much nearly a full reverse grid. There's 12 drivers on the circuit, so everybody who ends up having a little bit of an unlucky situation in race one will be hoping to really push back and trying to get into that top 10 place. Now, yesterday, Dave, we've only got 30 seconds, but yesterday you said that you thought that P3 would be leading into turn one. I can't remember who it was. Are you having the same prediction here?
I'm not. This is a very hard job for Robin. You can see the orange car on the left-hand side. 10 seconds to call it. I reckon he's going to have to get further left on the track to open up turn one, or Nicky Taylor will have the commitment. Let's find out.
And as the engine notes rise, the lights are coming on, and we will be racing for the first time here in the Academy Clio Cup at Thruxton, and Robin Walters gets a good start. Nicky Taylor, maybe not as sharp as he was hoping for, especially as Carl Felvers seems to be sneaking up his inside through T1. Carl Felvers gets ahead, and who is this that we're looking at? It's Mick Sutton and Brad Smith just behind him, but up ahead in the podium places, it's Carl Felvers on the inside of Nicky Taylor, and this is championship points that we're fighting over here, to be honest, people. This is Robin Walters third in the championship, Carl Felvers second in the championship, Nicky Taylor in first in the championship. It could all be reversed by the time we get to the end of this first race. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Mick Sutton holds on to that fourth place with Brad Smith in fifth for now, Andy Carroll in sixth, and Paul Zanatechi in seventh, Kenny Press in eighth, John Jones ninth, and Paul Laramie in 10th, although John Jones has just swapped over with Kenny Press as Carl Felvers puts the pressure on Robin Walters.
Fantastic racing, boys. Very, very clean through there. Incredibly close. And I don't quite know how Felvers managed to get as close to Robin Walters that quickly after passing Taylor. Didn't see whether it was a mistake there from Robin, but you can see Kyle Felvers actually very smart, not in a place where he wanted to overtake. And we'll see Kenny Press. Kenny Press is off in the wall. I believe that is just after church. So big incident there by Kenny Press. But yeah, as I said, Felvers maybe looking like he's working with Robin Walters there slightly more than what we've previously seen in the championship.
Paul Laramie goes off the circuit as well. He's facing the wrong way, and that is really gutting for Paul because he did so well as Daniel Adams drops outside the top 10 as well. Now we're focusing back at the front three. Muck Sutton trying to hold on to this three battling. Carl Felvers going for that move into the first complex. I was going to say it's not going to happen, but to be fair, he got a nose up the inside. It nearly tried it. Robin Walters always knew what he was doing, though. I think he carried the speed through the second apex and managed to get his full car length ahead. Nicky Taylor again maybe being held up there, just being the victim of his own speed, to be honest. Caught up to the back of these two drivers and had to hit the brakes a little bit hard. But he's got a pretty good view here, to be honest, I would say, Dave, because he knows if Felvers goes for something and it doesn't come off, then he'll have a fantastic run. And in fact, actually, Felvers already clipping that inside curb on the grass. We're looking at minuscule margins. We're talking about hundreds of miles an hour here. And Nicky's right on the back of Felvers as they go through Church. I think Felvers just going to miss that apex just a touch. That means he won't be able to get on the power quite as clean. Nicky Taylor actually didn't get on the power quite as early either, on the fear of running wide. But as they go down towards the second complex and the final braking zone of the track, it looks like Carl Felvers is going to have a good opportunity to hit the brakes, and he's done more than hit the brakes. He's hit Robin Walters. Walters going drifting, keep your foot in, but he can't. He ends up looking the wrong way, and that is absolutely disastrous for Robin Walters there. I'm not a steward. I'm not going to place blame, but it didn't look too hot from Carl Felvers and Robin there.
Yeah, if I'm truly honest, I'm really surprised Robin just didn't drop that a few gears and try and pull the front end out and straight line that chicane. I did say in the driver briefing that is more than fine to do if you're out of control or if it isn't possible to do the chicane, as long as you don't gain an advantage by doing it. By that I mean it once you cross the start-finish line, as long as you lift off the throttle to give back whatever time you've gained, I see that as being completely fair. Kenny Press is at the last chicane, I believe, there, facing the backwards. So that's unfortunate by Kenny Press. I believe he's coming in the pits as well. Meanwhile, up front, we're seeing Nicky Taylor really on the back of Kyle Felvers. I think Kyle was getting quite a lot of slipstream that maybe we weren't anticipating seeing. A real advantage at the start of that race, getting onto the back of Robin, and now Nicky Taylor has got exactly that same sort of thing. You'd see Kyle Felvers flashing his lights, Brad Smith running wide, and this is looking like a possible setup for a move on Mick Sutton going down towards the last chicane. Mick Sutton's moving right and defending. Meanwhile, Nicky Taylor's putting up the inside of Kyle Felvers. That looks like that's job done. Is he going to get the car stopped? He is, but Felvers is going to get a good run on exit. This might open him up going down towards turn one.
Yeah, he's Amazon primed that move, hasn't it? It's been absolutely sent next day delivery. Well done to Nicky Taylor, getting a nice clean move on Carl Felvers there. Mick Sutton and Brad Smith, as we mentioned, fighting nicely, but it's not letting them catch up to these two drivers, to be honest. It could well be a four-way fight if they worked together for just one lap. Carl Felvers makes contact with Nicky Taylor. It's the second time he's made contact with a race leader this evening, and I'm not saying it was any intention, I'm not saying there was any fault in there, but it is a fact to fact. There is contact. Nicky Taylor, though, this time keeps his foot in and manages to go back on the straight and narrow. More pushing from Carl Felvers there, maybe just to give Nicky Taylor the hurry up so they can keep ahead of Mick. But I'm sure Nicky will be hopeful to keep this position. But to be honest, Dave, even if he loses this race lead, he's just going to have another opportunity in the next lap to take it back, because that is what we're about to see now. It's a yo-yo effect, isn't it, for the next 15 minutes? As Carl looks to the outside of Church, he's trying to open that move up, trying to open the corner up as much as he can to try and get the best run that he possibly can manage, and he has got a decent run, actually. I thought he was going to try around the outside of Church, but no, he was getting that cutback. Brad Smith goes into third place ahead of Mick Sutton, as here comes Carl Felvers trying to do exactly to him what Nicky Taylor did to Carl just before, as Mick goes really late on the brakes and just about holds on to that third place and gets the job done as Carl Felvers moves into the race lead. But for how much longer going into T1? It's going to be 3 wide almost as Mick Sutton tries to go around the outside, but Nicky Taylor's going to have the move, and as they send all the speed through, they're 2 by 2, Dave.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic racing. We've got a pack of 4 cars here, racing about as hard as they possibly can. Mick Sutton up the inside of Nicky Taylor, and that's a spin by Mick Sutton. Clipped the curb up on 2 wheels. Didn't really have anywhere to go there, and actually, he's rejoined all the way back down in 6th place. A very good run by Andy Carr at the moment. We haven't seen much of Paul Zanetechi, a bit in no man's land, but there he is there. Not that far off the back of Brad Smith now, so pulling himself back into this race through the others battling as hard as they are.
To be honest there, Mick Sutton's spin, I think that was a case of trying to defend as hard as he could through Brad Smith and just missed his braking zone. I don't think he was going for a move on Nicky Taylor, so I have a little bit of sympathy for him there, really, because I think he was not driving in his mirrors as such, but certainly thinking defensive than offensive. Luckily, everybody's carried on. Nicky Taylor especially, luckily he's carried on, because obviously it would be really sad to see that battle end just because someone accidentally missed their braking zone. But Mick will be back. Obviously, we've got a top 10 reverse, remember, in the next in 13 minutes' time. To be honest, 13 minutes around Thruxton, there's every opportunity that he could be back in the top 5 by the end of the by the time we get into 10 minutes to go. Nicky Taylor, quite a way back from Carl Felvers. I say quite a way back. It's 0.7 of a second. That's quite a way back considering what we've seen so far, Dave.
Yeah, it's quite a way back, but bear in mind there was obviously that incident through turn 2 here, or turn 3. You know what? I don't think that's too bad. It'd be interesting to keep an eye on Taylor's times. He is fast round here, and all he has to do is start to get a little bit back in that slipstream of Felvers, and it'll make his job a heck of a lot easier. So also be keeping an eye on the top end speed. I'm looking at the speed trap at the moment, and previously Kyle Felvers on the last lap was 128 mile an hour. Nicky Taylor, on the other hand, was 130.8. So you're talking 2, nearly 3 mile an hour difference, all because of that torque. So are we actually also seeing that early contact, a few little bumps earlier on that race by Kyle Felvers and Taylor? Has that caused damage to the car, and is that affecting the way it cuts through the air?
We'll have to wait and see as Daniel Adams jumps out the way as he's getting lapped by Carl Felvers and pretty much the rest of the field. But to be honest, Dave, that's pretty good driving. I know it sounds like weird to say that if you're being lapped, it's good driving, but you see a lot of people, I've come up against a lot of people that don't have that kind of racing respect for the rest of the field. As Nicky Taylor, I think Kyle didn't get the run that he wanted through the final chicane, and he's defending into T1. We'll get back to talking about back markers in a minute, because here comes Nicky Taylor around the outside, or technically the inside of T2, but we all know that it's going to be the outside for T3 in the first complex. Felvers trying to just defend that, but Taylor's done a really good job at carrying so much momentum through there. But Felvers has enough in the tank to get through and defend that position with a flashlight. Brad Smith is hoping to get a race victory here, and I'm guessing dedicated to Waller.
Yeah, that was definitely some flashing going on there, wasn't it? I don't know where the button is, maybe it's on his wheel, but yeah, it does play a part. That you'd be surprised. Just seeing that in his mirror takes a lot of sort of distraction for the driver in front. And you know, sometimes drivers regard it as a little bit of a dirty tactic, but I tell you what, you see enough drivers do it, and that to me is Brad Smith going, you know what, Nicky, I'm coming for you, and if you start to battle, I'm going to put the lunge on.
I remember a race against a bloke who I heard of, I commentated on one, and he managed to map the flashing button at the brake, so every time he broke, he would flash someone at the same time. The most annoying thing ever. Nicky Taylor up the inside of Carl Felvers. Felvers will open up this last chicane, but to be fair, Nicky got it stopped well, didn't he? Really good driving there. And this is just allowing Brad Smith to get involved in the party. Look at the back end of Felvers' car. It's already pretty dented and bruised, as is the sign and the custom for Thruxton racing, to be honest, because it's basically pushing each other constantly for 15-20 minutes. But Smith going to the outside is a dangerous place to put your car, Dave, really. Felvers looking to the inside. Nicky Taylor managing to just cut across both of them, but Smith doing a real good job here. To be honest, it's really difficult to decide which one is Smith and which one is Felvers, but we're going to race through it. Smith did a really good job there. It's showing his intentions. He didn't really get the great run. He's lost out on a couple of tenths here, but he's showing intention here, and that's enough to worry the front two.
Yes, unfortunately for Brad, he sat there in P3. Maybe, I'm not saying he was a little bit greedy, but he saw the opportunity to really get past the two drivers in front, and maybe because he went for a move where it wasn't necessarily on, it meant that he's actually lost quite a lot of time there to the drivers in front. So Kyle Felvers and Nicky Taylor getting a little bit of a breakaway. That, to me, there was Kyle Felvers running at the back of Taylor going, I'm not going past you, just get a move on, we need to go. But in saying that, in the braking zone, look at this, Nicky Taylor, Felvers, side by side. Nicky Taylor's going to tuck in. What a nice move that is. Taylor, very good racecraft. Look at the overspeed by Taylor on the exit as well. Will he manage to carry this down all the way to turn 1? Felvis on slightly more of an inside line. This is completely flat through turn 1, and Nicky Taylor's now got a little bit of slipstream down towards the first right-hander in this complex. Let's see what happens.
And Brad Smith has been given a bit of a gift because he's got about 0.3 of a second back towards these two drivers. Not close enough, obviously, to make any kind of move, but he will be by the time the end of the lap comes around, especially if he gets into the nice toe and these two keep fighting. But Nicky Taylor, what is the plan here, Dave? If you were Nicky Taylor now in second place, do you sit there and wait because you know this yo-yo effect is going to go on, or do you keep trying to make the move, keep trying, and hope that by the end of the race, you're the one who's actually doing the overtaking into the final corner?
Honestly, that is a really, really difficult question. It's one of them scenarios where Nicky's gave Kyle a few chances here to go, do we work together and go forward, or do we keep swapping places? And Thruxton, as he said, is very much a yo-yo track. I would say Felvis has probably put the lunge on a few too many corners for Nicky to now sit behind. And sure enough, there you go, yet again, Nicky's gone left. But saying that, Nicky went left there, but Felvis was very defensive up the inside. So has Nicky gone left there to say, I'm not putting the lunge on, let's go? It's very, very hard. And I tell you what, you think it's hard for us to read the scenario? When you're under the pressure and in that driver's seat, battling as hard as these drivers are, you've got to make them decisions so quick. And the mental games that would be going on now between them two drivers is absolutely unbelievable. So this is brilliant to watch.
Robin Walters has just been overtaken by John Jones for 7th place. So Robin Walters, who we expected maybe to come back through the order and maybe not having it all his own way, it's a bit of a difficult situation for him, really. To be honest, he might be going for a reverse grid pole and be quite happy to sit behind John Jones for the next 7 minutes. It's a tactic that might not feel like a true racing driver's tactic, but it could well work as Nicky Taylor's trying to elbow his way up the inside through Goodwood and down towards Church now. It's not going to be so easy for Felvis, is it? We were contemplating about whether he was going to have an easy ride until the last couple of laps, but Nicky Taylor at the inside of Church is brave. Is it stupid? Is it brilliant? We'll have to wait and see. It could well be none of the above, to be honest, because he's not quite made the move stick, but he's going to go into the final complex with a good chance. So is Brad Smith, Dave, though, isn't he? As Taylor looks at the inside now, Smith, look at that overspeed that he's had, but Taylor gets the braking zone, gets the corner, and he's just about having to hold on to this one, but Felvis is going to have a decent run through. So is Smith.
This is brilliant. I just want to sit back and watch this.
Well, you've got to commentate on it.
This is absolutely fantastic racing. And just imagine now, I imagine Nicky Taylor and Felvis's dads are both watching this at the moment, and it'll be fantastic to see because I bet both of them have stood off the chair watching this. It's exactly what we want to see, a yo-yo effect, constantly changing positions. But look crucially how much time both of these drivers are losing to the pack behind. Paul Zanetechi, Mick Sutton, Andy Carroll, they aren't that far off the back of this group. And looking at the lap times, previous lap, Nicky Taylor, Kyle Felvis, both on 1:24.2, 1:24.4. Meanwhile, Brad Smith, Paul Zanetechi, Mick Sutton, all on mid-23s. So nearly half a second faster. These boys have got to be careful, but I don't want to encourage them not to do this because this is brilliant to watch.
Yeah, I think Adrian Felvis, who's obviously normally very active in the chat, has probably got very sweaty fingers, to be honest, because he's not typing anything. He's not involved in it at all. So he's on the edge of his seat, probably, like you've mentioned, because they're going to go too wide again. And again, Brad Smith, he's there, but he's not quite there enough, if that makes sense. Nicky Taylor with that locking up of the brake as Felvis tries to fly around the outside. He's going to have to cut the chicane. And I think we didn't want to speak about track limits too much. That would have been track limits if he'd managed to actually hold on to that race lead. But he's giving it back to Nicky Taylor. Fair play, they can duel it out again. We'd rather see that than any kind of crash, wouldn't we? Any kind of unsafe rejoin. As long as he accepts that he's not going to hold on to that race lead. So now he has to do it all again. Do it legally into the first complex. He's going to give it a go as well. But I think Nicky Taylor's just about held on to it because he held the momentum around the outside. And Felvers is trying to throw everything at him, and I think he may well have had the cutback. And I think Felvers is going to have this. Brad Smith, where do you go? That's the golden question. Mick Sutton's about to get past Paul Zanetecchi as a flash of lights by Kyle Felvers means that he knows there's action to come from behind, and he doesn't want to be susceptible to taking someone having taken second place away from him. So at the moment, Felvers in the lead, Nicky Taylor in second, Brad Smith in third, Mick Sutton ahead of Paul Zanetecchi. It's a five-way battle, arguably, for the race lead with 3.5 minutes to go.
This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. Brad Smith must be looking at this going,
oh, where's Felvers going? Felvers has flown himself off around the outside of Church. That's absolutely not where he wants to be. I don't know how he's held on to the move, but I think it's because Smith overtook Taylor. Otherwise, there would have been an opportunity for him to lose out on more places. But Smith might go from third to first in the course of about one straight. Brad Smith is putting on a show here, ladies and gentlemen, but Nicky Taylor's not having it. He's going from third to first as well. Mick Sutton's with a surprise appearance as well. 4 wide into T1 at Thruxton. Please don't crash. Oh, it was inevitable. Just like Thanos, it was really only going to end one way, I believe, that one, unfortunately, in an end with Mick Sutton and Kyle Felvers falling off the track. Nicky Taylor holding on to that race lead, and Andy Carroll in second place. My voice couldn't go higher, Dave. I didn't have any breath left. I didn't know how to call that one. You said you wanted to sit back and enjoy the racing. The racing, unfortunately, I think may have just ended.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know what? This happens occasionally. Racing builds and builds and builds, and there has to be some form of impact or pop that, you know, puts it to a finish. You can't just keep blowing a balloon up endlessly. And unfortunately, that ended up a chain reaction cycle where it went 4 abreast into turn 1. It's never going to go well. It is always a really, really risky scenario, and unfortunately it hasn't paid off. I thought we were going to get away with it, but unfortunately a car on the grass as well just couldn't stop themselves from spinning and straight up there. So it's looking like Nicky Taylor has been given a bit of the get out of jail card there. A fantastic racing and a very, very well deserved win anyways, but needless to say, this battle for third now isn't done. Paul Zanetecchi, Andy Carroll and Robin Walters. Look at this comeback. Robin Walters now back up into P3 in a podium position. At the start of the race, if he got told that he was going to be dead stone last and get himself back on the podium, with also Felvers dropping positions, I mean, you couldn't have wrote it, could you?
I mean, no, and to be honest, while we were chatting then and looking at what's going on in front of us, I was looking back on the stream actually as well, because it's about a minute behind of what we can see, and I was just watching that first corner and that sort of run up to the first corner, to be honest, and it's heartbreaking to see it through again as well, and you sort of get a different perspective on it, because it could have been one of the most epic moments of sim racing in VRRC, couldn't it? 4 wide through T1 and into the braking complex, but you just felt like it was, as I said at the time, a little bit inevitable, Dave. You just don't fit that many cars through a corner like that, do you, without there being some kind of repercussion. So it was a massive shame, but you have to really give credit, as you mentioned already, to Robin Walters and Paul Zanetecchi, actually, because Paul, it was 4 wide and he was just behind. He was almost like a sitting midfielder if we're talking about formations in a football match. And he just swept it all up. Everybody hit themselves in front of him, and he was just like, you know what? All right, I'm just going to just move my car through here, navigate my way through here, and all of a sudden, second place. I'll take that, even if it's only even if it's third, because we're on the last lap of the race and Robin Walters gets in. I think Zanetecchi will be pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I think Zanetecchi, probably looking at it, knows he didn't have the outright pace, but he's been super consistent, hooking the laps up. You know, he hasn't dropped too far back from Nicky Taylor here. Look, he's only just on the next corner. So actually, Paul Zanetecchi doing a very good job, and I would agree. Don't think he's going to defend too hard from Robin here if Robin can get right on his bumper. Meanwhile, look at this in the background as well. Brad Smith has found his way onto the back of Carroll. You know what? I'm gonna put my neck out on the line and say Brad Smith is having a heck of a race tonight. Bit unfortunate with that incident, but he is racing well.
Yeah, and remember, he held that drift, didn't he, at the end of qualifying? That's at least
excellent
5 points for the championship, in my opinion, that we should be adding to this tally. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll get away with that one. But I tried, Brad, I tried. Anyway, he's, as you mentioned, right on the back of Andy Carroll as we are on the white flag. Last lap of the race, Carroll going for that defensive move early, showing his intentions extremely early. Nicky Taylor will take this race victory, but first of all, we want to have a quick look at him as he crosses the line. It will be Nicky Taylor. You can't argue that he deserves a race victory here this evening. He's been very, very strong as Zanatechi comes home in second place. Robin Walters, and then it's just Andy Carroll ahead of Brad Smith. But to be fair, I think there, Dave, again, Brad Smith, there was an opportunity for a race victory. Don't get me wrong, there was an opportunity. There was a definite deserving of a podium position. After everything that's happened, 5th place is not a bad haul of points to be picking up for him. Carl Felvers will be very disappointed about that one. All the way down to 7th place right at the end is not how we wanted to finish this one. Mick Sutton in 8th place as well. He started in 4th, fell down to 8th. Again, maybe a touch greedy from Mick Sutton, but he was damned if he does, damned if he doesn't with the way that people came out of that final corner. Simon Thorpe rounds out the top 10 and will be on pole position for race number 2. Dan Adams was a lap down and ended up in 11th place. But Dave, we have some podium sitters to talk to, and I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about.
I'm sure there will be indeed. We'll go down to our P3 finisher, and I tell you what, Robin, I bet you didn't think I'll be talking to you after that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no idea what really happened at the start, so I'll have to.
Sorry, I don't know whether you cut out there on the interview or whether you were just saying you don't know really what happened. But yeah, it was a scenario where the racing looked absolutely frantic. You dropped back through the pack a little bit after an unfortunate spin. I think it was on turn 2 going into the complex. And then, you know, you managed to keep it going. But actually, the race came back to you at the end there with obviously an incident that happened out front. And you just kept working your way back through the pack.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. I think it was me. I let go of the push to talk. But yeah, no. I think after the incident, normally I'd be quite despondent, but I just got my head down and I put in some really quick lap times actually while I was in clean air. And I thought you never know. You just never know, do you, when it might come back to you. So yeah, I'm thrilled that it did actually and managed to get on the podium.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. You never know. And I tell you what, that sort of attitude is really what helps you gain positions in the championship. Great race, Robin. Good recovery driving. Looking forward to seeing what you can deliver in race 2.
Nice one. Thanks, Dave.
We'll move forward on our P2 finisher, Paul Zanatechi. I mean, this is a nice result, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice. Considering where I started, I'm very pleased with that. I don't think I had the pace compared to the people I was racing with, but it just went my way, I think. There's a bit of luck involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, maybe in qualifying didn't look like you had the outright pace in the car. Maybe in the race also struggling a little bit, but you've probably now seen elsewhere where other drivers are maybe slightly quicker. You've now raced wheel to wheel with them, and now you've seen how Thruxton really is like a yo-yo, constant change of position, constant tripping over, and can lead to that massive sort of fluctuation in pace difference. But it was your consistency in that mid-pack and just keep picking spaces off, and you found yourself in P2. I don't know whether we've got you there, Paul. Have you got your mic muted?
He's had enough of you, Dave.
Well, unfortunately for Paul, it looks like he has gone, unfortunately, from there, but he's still got, obviously, that P2 finish, so we'll see what he can deliver next time out. Meanwhile, P1, Nicky Taylor, what a frantic race. And I tell you what, we were saying, it's, you know, the penultimate round, this is not going to be a case of where he just lets a driver get ahead and go with him. This is a battle all the way at the finish now, and you have delivered. What a race that was.
Yeah, I mean, it does help to have raced Thruxton in real life to know how hectic a race is going to be around here. And obviously with TT's last academy was very, very beneficial, especially for this track. But yeah, just got my head down. My start weren't too bad. Obviously, Robin had a lightning start and Kyle didn't have one of his massively overpowered starts this time. So yeah, start weren't too bad, and then made my way through. Got out into the lead for a bit of it, and then just chopped and changed with Kyle, because around Thruxton you can't really ever lead. It's just kind of maintaining your position. And then what happened with the incident is there was 2 cars going into one. I went on the inside, and then I think Mick tried to go and make it 4 wide into the corner, and it just didn't end well. But luckily enough for me, that gave me the break, and then I got through and I won. So
Yeah, I've got to admit, we saw that 4-into-1 scenario, and I don't quite know how it was your car that managed to come out the other side.
To be fair, I got through the corner. I was like, I know there's going to be some sort of incident here because they're going very, very tight with the two Domino's cars into the chicane. And then I was just like, well, I can get the cut back here and go to the inside, and then didn't cover it off enough. And yeah, to be fair, I don't actually know how I managed to make that through. But I did, and I'm grateful that I did. So yeah, hopefully reverse grid, we can do what Kyle did at Snetterton and win both races.
Yeah, well, it was very opportunist. A little quick pointer on Kyle. Obviously, he's starting back in 7th place, which obviously in reverse grid style means he's right at the front of the grid. You're obviously a long way back. Is that playing your mind regarding the championship, or do you reckon you can pull yourself through this grid?
No, I mean, I think I'm in the better position here, to be fair. Just start further back. I hold back when I need to around Thruxton, and at the end of the day, anything can happen at Thruxton. That's been proven in race 1, where hopefully for me, not me getting tangled up in it in the second race, but hopefully there can be another one and it can help me through. But I'll do it the hard way either way, so let's just get on with it.
Well, I'll let you get your head down. Time is running short now, so good luck with race 2, and huge congratulations on the P1.
Thank you very much, Dave.
And that was our podium sitters there, interviewed by Dave Marshall, of course, and plenty to unpack there. Unfortunately, Paul Zanetechi didn't fancy talking to you, Dave. But it's it's going to be interesting to see how we sort of push forward on this one.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, looking at it, it's even worse news. Paul Zanetechi wasn't just a mic mute or not talking to me. It was actually a full PC crash. So this is looking like Paul Zanetechi is going to struggle to make the grid now for race 2. So, yeah, not great news.
Yeah, it isn't. And we've only got about 10 seconds to go as well, as the lights you can see are starting to come on your screen. And it's really good for Paul Zanetechi. But as the lights come on, the engine notes rise. And for the second and final time this season, we will be racing at Thruxton in the Academy Clio Cup. And it's Paul Laramie on pole position. But look at Mick Sutton pushing his way through, trying to make sure he doesn't get held down with that fantastic start he got off the line. Mick Sutton goes his way into P1, and it's a brilliant run into the complex as well. He's got a fair old gap between himself and Carl Belvis, who's gotten into P2 after that atrocious opening race result that he will be hoping to resurrect here this evening. Mickey Taylor up to 6th, Brad Smith up to 5th as well, as we look at a little bit further back. But Carl Belvis will be very much hunting down Mick Sutton now for the rest of this lap, and will be hoping to take the lead into lap 2.
Yeah, another fantastically clean start. Well done. That was brilliant racing, good racing, respect. And one of them moments where you just see a driver maybe start to get the undercut, but he's realised there isn't the room on the exit because there's a car there that's slow. Exactly the racing that we want to see. Very good racing, respect, and very little collisions to other cars there. Meanwhile, up in front, that looked like Simon Thorpe getting a little bit loose through Church. Definitely not a corner where you want to be getting loose, but well held, Simon. You've got Nicky Taylor now, the previous race winner, right on his tail. Meanwhile, Brad Smith is the guy in the move up into P3. Now, got the breakaway, and the pressure is now going to be on, trying to catch Felvis and Sutton. But I tell you what, Sutton has done a hell of a job at the start.
He has indeed, and I'm just wondering, obviously we've lost a few other drivers, Paul Zanetechi being one, that was probably unintentional, Daniel Adams, and I believe Kenny Press, unfortunately, hasn't been able to join us for race number 2, which is a shame, which is why we got a few drivers missing. But yeah, well, I'm sure we'll still have an absolutely awesome race as Robin Walters gets through on Simon Thorpe. Nicky Taylor, like you mentioned, and Robin all doing well as Robin gets a little tag for the backside. But really, it's Brad Smith who's been really pushing forward in the early stages. Nicky Taylor now getting into 4th place. Carl Felvis not really been able to catch up to Mick Sutton just yet.
No, definitely not. And actually, I tell you what, the pace of the front three drivers is absolutely chronic here. Simon Thorpe's managed to get his way back through Robin, so we've seen the speed Robin's got in this car. But I tell you what, this is very much a case of drivers not really working with each other. They're sort of working against each other and tripping themselves over, hence why there's the positional change so much. Meanwhile, we can see Simon Thorpe running very wide. What a hold that was. Well done, Simon Thorpe. through church, back end wheels on the grass. What a hold that was. Big credit there, because I tell you what, that is not easy in the slightest. I think this is going to be a really good battle developed between Andy Carroll and Paul Laramie. Meanwhile, John Jones is actually not doing too bad of a job for holding on the back of Taylor here. He's showing good pace.
Yeah, Simon Thorpe with a big squeaky bum time there, really, wasn't it? Because the track just keeps going away from you. Once you get on the outside, you can never really get the grip to come back on. Paul Zanatechi a lap down, unfortunately. I don't know if we actually saw what happened to Paul. Was it a lap 1 incident there? Oh, no, he's rejoined. Of course, he wasn't actually connected to the server. Now he is connected, and he's joined us. I'm sure if that's technically allowed, but as long as he's a good... Oh, it is Carl Felvis. I'm not sure what happened there, Dave. Did you catch a look at that? I was looking at my other screen.
I tell you what, he was in no man's land with Mick Sutton, so unless if he caught up to the back of Mick and there'd been some sort of, but there's nothing on the server to say anything regarding a collision. So all I can presume is maybe that was a little bit of a loss of control or something like that. But now Felvis finds him very much on the back foot, trying to crawl his way now from 9th place. But if any driver can do it, I've seen the way Felvis can drive. He's going to be so determined to pull his way back through the grid. Nicky Taylor in P3, Robin Walters there in P5. So the championship definitely isn't done and dusted at this point.
I was going to say, it's been a pretty torrid 2 days, hasn't it, really been for Carl Felvis? Obviously, with Alton Park yesterday, race 1 today. Is Felvis forcing his way back Thorpe? But Adrian, I'm sure if you're out there, I'm sure you are, if maybe get into Carl's room and remind him that if Robin Walters can do it in race 1, then he can do it in race 2. He probably wouldn't thank you for interrupting him, but you might get a rather rude goodbye out the door, please. But it's worth remembering that, isn't it, I would say, Dave, because not all is lost here.
Definitely not all is lost. The grid is a little more spaced, I think it's fair to say. We've got about a 1.5 to 2 second gap between all the cars. See there, looking very nice in formation. The battle that might start to develop though is this one between Robin Walters and John Jones. We've seen Robin setting the timing sheets absolutely alight, so Robin I think will end up gaining on the back of John Jones. Actually, John Jones has ran wide, so actually that unfortunately for Carl Felvis is bad news, because that is the battle that could have really helped slow the front of the grid down and got their positions back. Meanwhile, Andy Carroll is having overspeed. What a move by Andy Carroll round the outside, but this is going to be a cutback from John Jones. Will John Jones have a look on the outside here? How late on the brakes? There he goes. He has got a bit more speed. He looked slightly earlier on the brakes, but he will set the chicane up slightly better. But it's a good chicane by Carroll, and I tell you what, Carroll has impressed me tonight. A very good driver.
He is indeed. He's doing very well here at Thruxton. Nicky Taylor setting the purple sectors alight in 1 and 2. Robin Walters with that 3rd purple sector as well. They're catching up to Brad Smith, and they're catching up to Mick Sutton as it happens as well. But both drivers in the top 2 places doing a really strong job here tonight, I think, actually. And Mick Sutton, he survived 6 minutes. Realistically, he only has to survive the next, 10 minutes, because I think Brad Smith is going to put up a bit of a staunch defence here, and even if Nicky Taylor gets past, I think Robin Walters will catch them both up, and I think Smith will keep having to go back. So if Mick Sutton just keeps putting in the consistent times he's doing, 22.4 as we saw in the race pace about halfway through the first one, that it was a 1:24 second was rough race pace. Mick Sutton's putting in 1:22s right now. So you never know, Dave. He keeps trying to get in those sub 1:23 times. These guys start fighting. Mick could run away with a really strong lead here.
Yeah, this is a really good position for Mick Sutton to be in. A very, very strong race indeed. As long as he can just keep a good control, drive within himself, not look at the timing sheets too much, not look in his mirrors. This battle behind is only going to help him here. Unfortunately, it looks like Taylor has actually managed to get past Brad rather quickly, but Brad is still there actually. He's still alongside that quarter. Nicky Taylor's going to have the inside line. Will Brad try and go around the outside here? No, he's going to tuck in nice and sharp, open up the left. But I tell you what, if he can get this hooked up, you watch. This will give him a great run down through Goodwood in the slipstream. He needs to be looking forward here, not behind, because as you can see in that rear view mirror, there's the orange car of Robin Walters. He is not too far back.
Yeah, exactly. I know Robin Walters is a bit of a scary proposition to have in your rear view mirror, but to be honest, Nicky Taylor's a pretty scary opposition to have in front of you as well. You might as well fight forward if you're going to fight anywhere, and that is exactly what Brad Smith is intending to do. By the looks of it, is a little touch of the brakes there. I think that's just a warning from Nicky Taylor more than anything, as Smith gets up the backside of him, just trying to push him through Church now. And I think Nicky Taylor actually drove really well there, just to hold off. Hold the brakes just a touch to allow Smith just to come off the throttle just a touch, having to second guess and hesitate himself.
I believe it was a flash of the lights, not a touch of the brakes. Otherwise, obviously, he would have slowed down. That was just the slipstream really coming into play there. Brad Smith tucked in right behind. That was Nicky Taylor, I think, flashing to go, come on, we need to go, otherwise Mick Sutton has gone here. Meanwhile, Brad Smith, fair play, he held on, but I tell you what, look at Robin, lights on. This is a guy with his head down. He is on the move here.
Yeah, to be honest, if I was Brad Smith, I'd probably be fairly aware that the two drivers around me are quicker than me, and I would have tried to fight them a little bit harder into that final chicane and not just let them sort of get away with it, because they will pull away, and that's exactly what you're about to see Nicky Taylor do, and that's exactly what potentially Robin Walters is going to do if Brad Smith is nice enough to let him. He really needs to get his elbows out if he's going to hold up any of these drivers and hope for a podium place. He's going to go around the outside of Noble and into Goodwood on the inside, so he is getting his elbows out. He's not playing Mr. Nice Guy anymore. Brad Smith goes into third place ahead of Robin, who, as you mentioned, does have his lights on as his full intention to get the move straight back done and dusted, but Brad Smith trying hard here to really mix it with drivers who probably could have a good 2 or 3 tenths of him per lap. And in fact, going around the outside of Church is potentially not the best place to do it, but Walters, who leans on him, gives him just enough room to hold on to that place. Smith going to the outside now into the deep braking zone of the final complex. It's a pretty much a guessing game where you want to hit the brakes as Smith hits them early. Robin goes deep and onto the inside. He's got the place done and dusted. But to be fair to Brad Smith, he held on for a lot longer there against Walters than he did against Taylor.
Yeah, that was brilliant, but if I'm honest, I'm going to provide a little bit of a different view, as I always see Andy Carroll with a mistake in the last chicane. That might have been a spin or maybe a contact, but I tell you what, that is played into its hand for Felvers. Another place without really having to do anything. So Felvers now not too far off the back of John Jones. This is what Felvers needs. He's not too far back now. Meanwhile, I would have said right at the point where Robin Walters had got past Brad, that to me is where Brad needed to push Robin Walters for all it's every driver's against his instinct. That would have put Robin a little bit closer to Nicky Taylor, and then if them had started a battle, that would have brought Brad right into the mix. So actually, it might have been a good idea there for Brad to let Robin get on with it and start to battle Nicky and then take advantage of it.
I tell you what, that's why you win championships and I come second, isn't it, Dave? That's 200 IQ plays right there. I was just thinking about trying and keep himself in the game for as long as possible, but you're thinking about how he can take advantage of other people battling as well and setting that up, how to set that up as a racing driver to come into your own as well. Very clever ways of doing it. But Carl Felvers looks like he's maybe cracking into the top 5 here. John Jones ahead of him. I think even John Jones will probably be one of the first to admit that he doesn't have the pace compared to Carl Felvers, and that this may well be pretty easy job for him, but we're just hoping that it doesn't end up in contact. With a flash of lights there, Carl Felvers will be very determined to make this move done as quickly as humanly possible, but there is a fair old margin between him and unfortunately the next driver, about 5.5 seconds for Brad Smith. I don't think that one's going to come down in a hurry.
No, but I'm just looking at the timing sheets. 8 minutes left of the race. Nicky Taylor's taken nearly a second out of Mick Sutton. Robin Walters is closing the gap a bit on Taylor. I think, looking at the timing, I think we could be in for a battle really close to the end of the race with Sutton, Taylor and Walters. And if Brad Smith can hold on close enough to this, this could be fireworks towards the end of this race.
Yeah, and I suppose you're absolutely right, and Felvers will want to be involved in that, but at the moment, John Jones is making that difficult, isn't he? He's had to fend off Felvers for as long as possible. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything about it now as Felvers is in the lead, and there's a little battle, and I thought there was going to be a cut across there by Jones, who sends so much speed through, he's going to run wide, so is Felvers, but Jones will come off a lot worse than him, and there we go, Felvers with the job done, and already there'll be about 2 seconds between himself as they hit the braking zone. 6.2 seconds, a potential battle up ahead, one that Felvers would want to get a bit of revenge on maybe as well. you're right, this could get interesting. We're talking championship now, aren't we really, Dave? Penultimate round, the final race of this penultimate round as well. There's only 2.5 races to go, essentially. Nicky Taylor is 10 points, or 9 points ahead of Carl Felvers, who in turn is 11 points ahead of Robin Walters. So those three with a lot to play for. Nicky will be in a strong position, and if it stays like this in the race, he's in even stronger position as well. But it only takes one poor race at Cadwell, a narrow, twisty, windy circuit. Everything's possible.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? Felvers, I think, has been probably dealt a bad hand here. Hasn't had the race that he needed to do to really challenge that championship of Nicky Taylor. But in saying that, we'll go to Cadwell Park, as you said, super tight circuit. It's a little bit of a case of a little bit of luck. At the end of the day, no matter how good of a driver you are, you can never tell what is going to happen from another 9 drivers on the grid. So this is going to be a real case of let's go the long haul, let's see what happens in the final round, but it definitely isn't done and dusted yet. Meanwhile, looking at this at the moment, we've got Robin Walters, a very clean line through that last chicane, maybe gained a little bit now. Previous lap, a 1:22 flat. Meanwhile, Taylor up ahead at 22.3, Mick Sutton at 22.9. So all these drivers are really starting to have this big gain, this big momentum shift. 5 minutes left to go this race. Are we going to see the fireworks I reckon we really, really deserve for this race?
Yeah, I think the fireworks may well start to appear at some point. I'm just hoping that they appear cleanly. Like we mentioned, we don't want basically a repeat of race 1 where, although it was ultimately extremely exciting, it ended up in tears, not fireworks. So fingers crossed we come across some good, clean battling towards the end. It is worth noting as well, Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast has just mentioned that Taylor does keep saying that it will go down to Cadwell Park, where he feels pretty confident around as well. So if he's feeling confident and he's got a 10-point gap, if not a little bit more at the end of this race, he will be feeling even more sort of snug about himself, I suppose. One thing we haven't mentioned at all today, and we start having to think about, Dave, driver of the round. It comes around so quickly. We start this evening and we think, oh, there's 40 minutes of racing before we have to worry about that too much. But Mick Sutton's ran wide. Nicky Taylor with a great opportunity. And I think there's a change with the race leader. Mick Sutton has made one mistake, Dave, in this entire race, and it's cost him a race win here. And Robin Walters will not want to see Nicky Taylor disappear at the road. He'll want to carve past Mick Sutton as quickly as possible, and we could see a big dive into the complex here as Robin Walters gets on the brakes. So does Mick Sutton. There isn't a move on just yet. Nicky Taylor will be hoping that those two start fighting, so Sutton can't get the run on him, can't get the slipstream. He's gone too far and too quickly into the second apex, meaning he couldn't open the third just enough. But Walters will be very keen to try and get this job done and dusted.
Yeah, this is where Robin needs to go. Go on, Mick. Push him forward. Push him towards Taylor. Get the pressure on. Otherwise, if he gets stuck in behind Mick for another lap, this could be a case of Nicky has a little bit of gap. So now, get in behind him. Give him a push. Go together. Work together to get this job done. Instead, you can see he's ended up on the outside. Mick's gone slightly defensive. And this is what's going to cost them straight line speed. If they work together at this point, Nicky isn't too far ahead to get the job done. Meanwhile, Brad Smith there in 4th place, watching this. The battle doesn't look like it's developed up ahead like it could have done. Brad Smith's probably looking at this going, that's a real shame for me. Or Mick Sutton going wide again. That wasn't a gain of an advantage because you saw how out of control the car was. And in fact, you can see by how much Robin has managed to close the gap. In fact, Robin is going for a look up the inside. That was very, very brave there, very late. Mick Sutton, though, believe still with COVID, so doing a very, very good job here. Robin Walters looking up the inside, didn't get that job done either. It just shows the speed differential Rob Walters had on Mick Sutton, and yet Mick is still holding on for that P2.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, there's a couple of points going Brad Smith's way for driver of the round, but I'd say a big point for Mick Sutton. We've mentioned it quite a few times that he obviously is suffering with COVID quite badly, and he still keeps turning up. And today, especially, he's putting in a really good performance, racing with some drivers that he knows full well are probably quicker than him, but he's holding off a really good defense here. And it's things we love to see, isn't it? Obviously, we hope he gets better as soon as possible. And I think Robin Walters is going to make easy money at this second place now, as Mick's having to run wide. Does well not to run off the circuit, but has conceded that position now. Is in third place, and Brad Smith may well come along and take that off him anyway by the end of the next 2 minutes. But still, really, very impressive from Mick Sutton.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one for driver of the day. It's between about 3 or 4 drivers. A lot of drivers very impressed. Has really impressed me. Andy Carroll had a really good, strong race 1, and half of race 2, it was just either a mistake or a spin in that chicane that's unfortunately dropped him down to that P8. I think fair play. John Jones has had a really strong event here today. John has drove very, very well indeed. Meanwhile, up front, you've got Brad Smith, who has been the standout for consistency and putting them laps in, kept himself out of trouble other than obviously that Turn 1 incident. And then you've obviously got Rob Walters' brilliant execution drive. Nicky Taylor, I mean, you've got him who's, basically come in and dominated this round, really. So, really, really difficult one to call for driver of the day. And I think we've got to look a little bit on what people are saying on that YouTube for what they think also is deserved for driver of the round.
Yeah, well, I know Scott Bugner's come into the YouTube chat. Obviously, Scott, a avid driver here at VRRC, especially in the Super Touring, and he's voted for Nicky Taylor as the driver of the day. And to be fair, we've given everybody else their credentials. Nicky Taylor with potentially 2 race victories. That 4-way battle into T1 as well that we keep looking back to. He came out of that the cleanest as well. He was racing very clean as he possibly could against the likes of Carl Felvis in race 1. And came out on top, as we mentioned. And then in this race, he didn't get through as quickly as the likes of Brad Smith or Robin Walters, but eventually he's overcame them all, and he got that position from Robin and from Mick when the opportunity presented itself. So there is a really strong battle for Nicky Taylor as well in that driver of the round. And I know we've said in we've said in our Discord, we pretty much all voted for one driver. But it is worth giving a real honourable mention, I think, to Nicky Taylor, who's done fantastically. He'll be rewarded with the points at the end of the day, which I think is why we don't always like to give driver of the round to the winning driver, Dave, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, they've got their rewards. They have the most amount of championship points. But it's always worth giving a shout out to them if they've done something very well, very clinical and very clean. Nicky Taylor's done that today.
Yeah, he has indeed. Just looking at this battle at start to develop, Robin Walters actually got past. Mick Sutton is there. He is really putting the pressure on Robin Walters. This is the last lap, in fact. This could be it. Is Mick Sutton going to have the overspeed here and get Robin Walters? He's gone out. He's gone left. This is going to be brave to go around the outside. Yeah, I know, fine. Well, Mick's going to go for this. Round the outside. Robin Walters gone a little bit deep. Oh, brakes. Robin Walters is going to have to cut the chicane. Mick Sutton's going to cut. In fact, it's a collision between both of them. And Brad Smith has managed to miss Robin Walters and come across the line in second place. I cannot believe it. And Robin Walters goes across the line backwards.
Oh, Carl Felvis gets 4th place ahead of Mick Sutton after all that. Oh my days, head in hands moment. It's very rare that I actually lift myself off my seat, but I was watching that last complex thinking this could go really badly or it could go really well. And when I saw Robin Walters take the cut, I was like, okay, they're safe. They've chilled out. But then Mick Sutton took the cut as well on the final apex, and I just thought at that point there's going to be a collision. That's really gutting. But at least it didn't actually involve the driver of the round, because the driver that we all voted for anyway, Dave, and that is Brad Smith, I think. And with a 2nd place, I think it's pretty difficult to argue. You could argue either way for a lot of these drivers. Nicky Taylor with a big honourable mention. Brad Smith, Carl Felvis did well in the end. He probably got away with it, and he probably knows it. But equally, I don't know if it was all his fault. So he probably feels like he gets a little bit of a rescue from that one as well. But yeah, big drama on that final corner, Dave. That was absolutely massive.
Yeah, it really was. There's not many times that I've got to mute my mic for pure laughter, and I'm sorry, but crossing the line backwards hasn't been done that many times. It was absolutely brilliant. It's not how we want to see the race end, and I tell you what, there must have been millimetres between the back of Robin's car and also Brad Smith coming past as well. So how that wasn't a collision as well, dear me. I said it was going to be fireworks on the last lap. I didn't quite expect that.
We didn't know. It was quite literal fireworks at one point. But we have some drivers to talk to, and I suppose at the end of a very drastic and dramatic couple of laps there, the first driver you're going to speak to actually was involved in it, wasn't he? And you can have a chat to Robin Walters first there, Dave.
Yeah, I will do indeed. Robin, I've got to ask, how's reverse?
You know, it's funny you should say that, because I was going to ask you how you actually engage reverse, because I couldn't find it. I just had to roll back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know how you find reverse. I might just dip clutch and keep pulling keys, or it might not work. But yeah, what a race that was. A super difficult race it actually looked like. You know, it was trying to get through the pack. Obviously, you didn't get through quite as quick as Nicky there in front, but still very, very clean to try and get through. And then you got to the end of the race, and I tell you what, you looked like you had the significant pace on Mick Sutton, and then as soon as you got past him, he was still hanging on you every lap, I presume because of the slipstream.
A combination of slipstream and my own sort of myself being my own enemy, I suppose, because as soon as I got past, I just got wobbly, because I thought, oh, just need to hold on to second. I'd be happy with second. So I think a combination of the two things, but credit to Mick, because you kept me really nervous right up until going over the line backwards. I didn't actually know I'd finished third until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, so it's still a very, very good recovery drive, a P3, and I tell you what, Robin, this championship is starting to come alive.
Yeah, I know Kyle's had a bad round tonight, but I need Nicky to have the same next week, and then maybe.
Well, it's never done until you cross the line, so let's see what happens next time out at Cadwell.
Thanks, Dave.
I will move forward on our P2 finisher and also our driver of the round, Brad Smith. Millimetres close there at going across the line to being taken out there. But I tell you what a brilliant drive it was. Drove within yourself. Brilliant battle all the way through. You must be fair happy with that result.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a bit of a panic through that last chicane. I saw it coming and I thought, I'll just take it steady, and then it all just happened so quick and I just lost control. Luckily, I made it through and got second.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of their moments, is you never know what is going to happen in a race. You probably saw you were P4, a bit of in no man's land, nothing really in front of you developed, nothing behind, and then to be all on the last line through the last chicane, you gain 2 positions.
Yeah, I was hoping the front 3 would start fighting and let me catch back up, but Nicky seemed to just get through and disappear. And then I thought, oh well, it's down to Robin and Mick. And then I thought, well, it's not happening now. And then when coming into the chicane, I saw it unfolding and I thought, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, brilliant racing. Now, I've got to quickly ask as well, the Clio's Thruxton as a track, I mean, how is it? The racing looked absolutely fantastic to be part of.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah. It's really good. You just literally pretty much keep them pinned. And it's just hang on and just keep going, and how big are your kahunas, do you know what I mean? Just keep it pinned and hope for the best.
Well, I tell you what, you must have massive kahunas to keep your foot in it going across the line there and manage to miss Robin Walters. Huge credit, Brad. Well done on P2 and also taking home our driver of the round as well. I'm sure Olive will be chuffed.
Yeah, that's now time to get her to bed. Lovely, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Brad.
Cheers.
And we'll move on to our P1 finisher, Nicky Taylor. This has been what a round for your championship. Exactly what you needed.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I said at Snetterton, wait for Cadwell. Didn't expect to get a double win at Thruxton, I will be honest. But it's come, fortune's come my way. I said to Kyle all week, to be fair, I said, you're going to have a bad round at some point. It's going to happen, so just beware of it. But no, to be fair, after he spun, I don't know if it was connected or anything, because it looked quite, from where I was sitting, it looked quite unrealistic.
He did have mad ping, apparently, so it may well have been.
Yeah, so that happened, but he's done well to get back up to 4th, so I think he'll be quite chuffed with that. But yeah, got through. When I had Robin behind me, I was absolutely bricking it because I could see he was quicker. So I was like, oh, I just need to close down Mick quickly now and just get past and then hope that I can pull a somewhat gap so he doesn't tow me, which I did, and Robin got in with Mick, and Mick just kept behind him. So yeah, it was quite good. And then quite entertaining across the line, see them both go like backwards across the line. So that was quite good. But yeah, no, it's been a great round, and Cadwell's my favourite track on VRRC, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, Cadwell also one of my favourites, but you've got to admit it's going to be tough. It's a very narrow track. Obviously, you proved yourself in the Clios. You're a very fast driver, so race 1's probably slightly less of a worry. But that reverse grid race, Cadwell Park, narrow, difficult for overtakes, that's going to be the challenge, isn't it?
Proved it in TT that I can make my way through the pack at Cadwell. Granted, had a bit of misfortune in the second race. We're getting tangled up in some incidents, but these cars are a lot smaller than the TTs, so I reckon I can pull a few moves, few good ones for the cameras. But yeah, just bringing it home now and just not getting involved in anything is going to be the way to get back champions.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you get on at Cadwell Park. Brilliant effort tonight, Nicky. A double win on the cards, and let's see what you can do for your championship.
Oh, cheers, thanks, Dave.
And that was Dave Marshall having a chat to our podium sitters and driver of the round, of course. Now, looking at the championship, Nicky Taylor, 174 points. It's looking like a little bit more of a gap, isn't there? A little bit more of an uphill battle for Carl Felvers to try and get this championship away from Nicky. Robin Walters has closed that dramatically as well to to just 8 points. And that was about 20 points at the beginning of this evening. So that shows how Kyle hasn't had the best round at all. Mick Sutton in 4th place. Some unfortunate incidents probably means that he was going to hopefully be a bit closer to Robin, but it's not the case. But he is ahead of Paul Zanatechi, who's gotten past Martin Johnson, who unfortunately wasn't here this evening, who has also now on level points with Brad Smith after a brilliant round for Brad, it has to be said. So congratulations to him and his premature acceleration team. But Dave, that's a big sort of swing, I would say, in points in the penultimate round here at Thruxton. It was always going to invite some action. Cadwell, more difficult to overtake, I should say. And I think we're going to have a few determined drivers on the grid there. And I reckon Nicky Taylor might just feel the pressure a touch.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I don't know whether you saw there just before it went off screen, a really interesting battle starting to develop between Paul Laramie and John Jones, only 4 points separating them drivers, and obviously that's right on that bracket for that reverse grid race. So this could be a really crucial round for both John and Paul. Yes, it's down for 8th and 9th position, but I tell you what, when you're a driver, that doesn't matter. All you want to do is beat the driver in front of you. So that is going to be definitely a battle to keep our eyes on going into Cadwell.
Yeah, for sure. Just speaking of Cadwell, we'll go back to that graphic we had up just before we say goodnight as well. And there you go. We've had Brands, we've had Silverstone, we've had Donington, Snetterton, Thruxton tonight, and Cadwell Park is next week. 8th of December. Make sure you mark it in your calendars. And if you can't remember that, there we go. There is the ultimate graphic. If you want to have a quick gander, make sure you stick it in your phone right now, Wednesday the 7th of December, 7:20. Wherever you're watching this, subscribe to it. And you'll make sure that you'll get a notification when we go live at Cadwell Park, because you didn't want to miss it at the Audi TT finale last time out. You don't want to miss it this time either. It was absolutely sensational then. It'll be exactly the same this time round. And if you're not at all bored with sim racing and you want to get more VRRC action, there we go, bang on your screen. Super Touring Car Championship provided to you by PowerMax and VRRC. Round 5 at Silverstone National is next Tuesday. That is the penultimate round of the championship, and it's looking very tight indeed. A few new runners at the front end of the field means that it's going to be all thrown up in the air, and it's not going to go the way of Jordan Brennan. Well, it might do, but it might not be as easy as he was hoping for, to be fair. Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. over on VRRC, and a plethora of other feeds as well on Facebook, if we can get Facebook sorted. And last little bit from us is the advertisement for the Mini Challenge Season 3. We mentioned it right at the beginning. We'll mention it right at the end as well. Plenty of action to be had here. The first round kicking off on the 16th of December. There's plenty of entries still available. So if you're watching this thinking, you know what, I think I could actually have a crack at this and I want to race some real world Mini Challenge drivers, then by all means get into it and send us a message, drop a comment, and do anything you want to do on any of the socials at the bottom of your screen. First place prize will be a mini test day and 12 hours of sim coaching. Second place prize will be a mini test day. Those two are it's a shared mini test day between first and second. And 6 hours sim coaching provided to you by the likes of Dave Marshall, who's been in the comms box for me all season long and has been pretty much forever in terms of VRRC as far as I'm concerned. You also get some OBP hydraulic pedals and sim race chassis and everything like that as well. All the information's on your screen. It's going to be an absolutely amazing championship, so please do get involved. And if you don't think you're capable, but you think somebody that you know is, by all means send them a message as well. Tag them in the post below. It'll be brilliant to have as many drivers as possible. Dave, I think it's about that time that we probably seal out the evening, but if just in case before we go, there's a few other things on your screen. We had the weekly stages on Map Dirt Rally, Forza Horizon, a nice friendly community for casual races on Forza, the Assetto Corsa Championships, Time Attack, and fun races. Obviously, fun races included on the Sunday night. You don't even need to be a member of VRRC to get involved in the fun races. If you want to have a new challenge, you want to race some fun cars around some different circuits, then by all means, pop down to VRRC on Sunday nights. And the Assetto Corsa Competizione as well, weekly endurance races that we get involved in here at VRRC. So there's plenty to go around, Dave. But it's about that time we probably seal off the evening, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it is. What an action-packed night it was. Thruxton, these cars obviously never, ever stop delivering. And I tell you what, I bet the drivers are really glad going forward to Cadwell Park. They've got a car a little bit smaller than a TT to get round there. It's not a big track at all.
Yeah, we will miss the push to pass though, because that did make it very entertaining. But I'm sure these Clios will provide that just with the momentum they'll take around the corners. Right, my name has been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined alongside me by Dave Marshall as usual, and it's been Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast cameras and generally the broadcast. He's done a brilliant job as he always done. If you've liked or followed or subscribed or done whatever you've done here at the stream, it's been a pleasure being your host this evening. We'll be back next Tuesday for more Super Touring Championship action, plus next Wednesday for the finale of the Clio Cup Academy. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Between the two of them, the inside of coats, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.